connection between the slip mat and the wafer is this. Let me take it back. First, you decide you want to buy a turntable. You go to the store, you buy the turntable. Of course, it comes in a box. You bring it home, you open up the box, and you take the turntable out of the box, and in the packaging, there's this rubber, I call it like a pancake type of thing, that is sitting on the turntable platter. And to this day, I don't know what the use of that was. And for me, I figured, let me plug the turntable up, put the album on the rubber pancake thing, start the turntable up, clockwise motion. Now the key thing was this. I needed the platter to continually be able to go in a clockwise motion while I went in a counterclockwise motion. So when I turned the turntable on, put the album on this rubber thing, and I tried to move the album in a counterclockwise motion, I was getting this resistance. I'm like, okay, there's something that's not happening here. What was happening, the problem was, when I proceeded to move the platter in a counterclockwise motion, the whole platter was going with me. This became a huge problem with this resistance of the platter not freely going in a clockwise motion. So in thinking of this problem I had with the turntable, something came in my head. I immediately took my album to the material store. And I remember, Mom was a seamstress, so remember y'all, I had the privilege of touching all these different type of materials. So as I'm walking down the aisles of the fabric store, I'm touching rayon, silk, polyester, cotton, suede, leather, felt. As I was touching the felt, I said to myself, this is lightweight. But then when I took a piece of the felt and I laid it over my arm, it was quite limp. So I still had a situation there. So I just said, I'm going to take two pieces the size of an average album. I'm going to go to the cash register, pay for it, go home. And I had to figure out a way to make this limp felt more sturdy, more solid. So when Mom wasn't looking, I dumped out all the water out of the iron, turned it all the way up high, went in the cabinet in the kitchen and got the spray starch. And I sprayed the circular felt on both sides, ironed it until I was able to get it as stiff as possible. I took the nasty rubber off, put the felt on the steel platter, and then I took the album and put it on the felt, and then I turned the turntable on. It went in a clockwise motion like it was supposed to, and then I put my fingertips on the album to try to get the album to go in a counterclockwise motion. Now, you got to understand, I need the both of these things to be running in opposite direction, but in fluid. Now, it was much better than that nasty rubber thing that came with the turntable. I needed one more material that would perhaps give the turntable platter freedom to move in a clockwise motion. And I can remember on days when Mom would make chocolate chip cookies with this type of paper that felt like wax. So what I did was I borrowed two pieces of it, the size of the album, and then I went back to the turntable. And I just decided I'm going to take the wax paper and put that on the turntable platter, and then take the felt and put that on top of the wax paper, and then take a chance on putting the album on top of these two materials, turn the turntable on, allow the turntable to go up to speed, and then I proceeded to put my fingertips on the vinyl and go in counterclockwise motion, and I could see that it was a happy medium between the platter going in clockwise motion and the album going in a counterclockwise motion. Now, I call this dual material device a wafer, and the reason why I called it a wafer is because during Easter, I remember Mom used to get us dressed, and we would go to our neighborhood church, and the person that's speaking, I guess he was called the pastor or whatever, and we would walk down this aisle, and they would give us this white little thing, like a little tiny cookie maybe type of thing. I called it a wafer because as soon as you put it in your mouth, it would melt. So I figured I'd call my turntable device a wafer. Years later, today, they call it the Slipmat. So then later on, there were companies that were building this device, and companies like 12-inch Skins and Thud Rumble, shout out to Cubert, that made this homemade device that I invented, an industry DJ hip hop standard.